departmental budget presentations, and the first one is Human Resources by Sherry Wells. Come up. I think part of your family's here. You want to introduce them?
That's my husband and my granddaughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've met him before.
Yeah,
Welcome.
we're going to dinner after we get done, so
Okay.
they came to take me to dinner.
Oh, that's
So,
nice.
Yeah. So, Mayor, Council, good afternoon. Carol, are you going to be there's nothing up here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The first slide here is what we do. We are responsible for our recruitment process where we bring people into the city and JUICE. We do payroll administration. We do benefit administration. We do training and development with our leaders and also some of our departments. We've done customer service training. We've done some generational training, that type of training. I like to do training, and I like to get the latest and greatest stuff out to the staff so that they are up to date with kind of what's going on in the world as far as society and economic and things of that nature. We're responsible for risk management, and that is that the insurances, workers' comp, property, and casualty insurance all run through our office. We take claims and we send them to TML. So as I mentioned earlier, we do all of this administration for both the city and for JUICE. Okay. All of that is done by three of us. Myself and Laura Wood, who is our HR generalist, who is responsible for our payroll and retirement and just deals with a hodgepodge of activities. In addition to Penny Perryman, who is our benefits specialist. And she's responsible for making sure that all of our benefits are up to date and paid for, and our employees are enrolled or disenrolled, whatever the situation may be. So between the three of us, we get all of this administration done. On this slide, this is a employee count. I wanted to show you kind of where we've gone from last year. Oops, where did it go? From last year to this year. The top box up there shows our numbers from last year, and we were at 406 at that time. And then this year is in the orange box, and we're at 392. Currently right now we have 20 openings. And under the circumstances, we are having very little traffic from an applications perspective. And I think this is not just common to the city, it's all over. If you drive anywhere, you'll see now hiring signs everywhere. People are refusing to come to work for a variety of reasons, and we are at no exception. So we do have a series of openings that we're trying to get filled as well. This is statistically, this is our new hires from last year. When we were in a COVID year, we only hired 45 people. We did have a pretty steady workforce, or a normal type workforce, even through the COVID years. But there was a period of time that we did shut down hiring so that we wouldn't have the exposure, you know, with when the virus was very rampant. We wanted to be sure that we didn't bring it into the workplace. We also had difficulties with getting people to be trained. If we did hire them, we couldn't train them because we couldn't get them close enough to each other to train. So it was just better off for us to shut down the hiring for a while. And so for that particular year, we only hired 45 people. This year, on the bottom down there, through July 1st, we've already hired 55. So it's been a busier year. It picked up in probably February, and it's been, and then it just shut down. So we're ahead on the numbers, but right now we're not churning anything, or if we are, we're churning it, a few numbers at a time. Oh, and also that number does not include civil service jobs. So if we have openings in police or fire, that is strictly just all other departments except civil service.
And is that about 100 in total in public safety, in civil service?
As far as numbers, yes.
It's
yeah.
about 100.
About
right?
100, yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a reflection of our terminations over the last year and then currently this year. Last year, I break it down by voluntary, involuntary, and retired, and then by city and by juice. And the numbers that you see last year they're even low because we tend to run, well, they may be, no, they're kind of normal because we tend to run about 10 people a year that will retire. And then our voluntary and involuntaries right there are about the normal as far as a normal number. But if you look currently in 20 and 21 through 7-1, look at how the change of those numbers have occurred. We've had more people from the city that have left. We've had an increase in our involuntary leaves, and we also have had a huge increase in our retirements. Now, this is not unusual, and I'll explain that in a later slide, because we do have a lot of people that are retirement eligible. And even though we average about 10 a year, we may start seeing more traffic on that as people choose to leave. But what I wanted to also point out in this situation is that I went out and looked to see this year what our terminations look like since the vaccine got out, and it was pretty much in the community that people had gotten vaccinated. And I wanted to see how many terminations we had received or had seen since that happened. And I used the date of April 2021 forward. So we're talking about a 3-month period. And during that time, in that 3 months, we had 18 people leave the city in juice, 17 from the city and 1 from juice. Out of those 18, a lot of them have left for a variety of reasons, but 8 of them have left for higher wages. So 44% of those terminations have left to go and get higher wages somewhere else. So as a result, what we're seeing is our turnover rate has gone up. Last year it was 7.6%. This year it's 14.8% so far. So this is a little disturbing, especially if you don't have traffic coming in that you can replace those people. Another thing that I like to look through is breaking up our numbers by generational differences, mainly because of the fact, yes, sure.
When you say that 44%,
It's coming from exit interviews and what they tell us when they leave, yes.
how reliable?
I
know that you can't give a objective.
Well, in all of my experience, when people leave, they give you the easiest answer they can give you. And if you went out 90 days later, 120 days later, and you ask those very same questions, you might get a different response because now they're fully clear from the employer, and so they might tell you something different. 9 times out of 10, money is in the top 10 reasons people leave, but the number one reason is usually your immediate supervisor. And so I think those particular reasons probably, it'd be interesting to see some information with the current environment that we're in, because I honestly think that things have changed over the last year. People are leaving for what I would consider not really smart reasons, and they're jumping ship for maybe $1 or $2 an hour. And I understand money may be important, but you need to take into account, your work environment, your benefits, who you work for, your environment that you're in. And we have lost a few people that have left and gone closer to home, and you can't blame them. So at this point, since these are recent terminations and it's a 44% number, you know, you got to take it at face value. But if I went out there 90 to 120 days out, it'd be interesting to see if that number would still be 44%. I would venture to guess it was at least half of that.
Right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have a question, kind of a follow-up on Ben's. Are these people that are leaving for a benefits package that's even comparable to what we offer, do you think? Is that possible?
I've not heard benefits, Mayor. I've heard more money and getting closer to home. We had 2 long-term employees that, and long-term I mean 15, 20 years, that found an opportunity closer to home, and they moved, and it happened to have a couple of more dollars, $2 to $3 more an hour to get that. So they were able to get home, closer to home, get more money, not have to fight the traffic that's just coming up everywhere. Now, have we seen them back yet? No. And we do have some of those that will cycle back ever so often. But not right now.
Good.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I do actually have another
Sure.
question. How many of those jobs do you think could be remote? You might not lose people if they didn't have to fight traffic.
Well, a lot of them are parks and streets and utilities, so those are not remote type jobs.
Understood.
Yeah.
But are some?
I can think of 2 that might be remote, of the openings that we have. And one of them is in juice, and they've just made an offer yesterday. So, and they are real good about putting situations out there that if they need to work remote, they can. And I saw an article in a magazine, I think it was last week, that talked about remote opportunities are now your new sign-on bonuses. So instead of a sign-on bonus or something of that nature, if you could offer them an opportunity to work remote, they would probably jump on that. Now, not all jobs in the city is conducive to that. Most jobs are not. But we learned through the COVID situation that some of our jobs can do that. And if there ever is an opportunity that needs to be, somebody needs to work from home, I think our management is very flexible to be able to do that. And I see that as a huge benefit. And I think we need to continue to promote that. Yep. Okay, this particular slide is more about demographic information. As I mentioned earlier, looking at the different generations. This is city demographics only, so this is the number of just the city employees. And what I'm showing here is 3 years of information, and this happens to be the 3 years that I've been here. I started with the city in 2019, so I find this very interesting to watch how this moves through each year. And you can see the different generations from the standpoint of our youngest generation, which is Gen Z. We don't have a very large population there yet, but it's it's showing an upside down V. So, we'll see more and more of that happening as more and more of those individuals come into the workplace. The millennial generation, which is ages 25 to 40, we basically are going up. We were up and then coming down, and then we've gone back up now. Our Gen X, 41 to 56 years of age, is kind of somewhat steady. And then our baby boomer generation, you can see, is starting to drop. And these are going to be people that are looking to retire and to leave. And then our silent generation, which is 76 to 93, these are our individuals that mainly work part-time, are doing part-time jobs. And so those numbers are going to continue to drop. As far as Juice is concerned, I like to provide this information over to Alicia Hooks, the general manager of Juice. But she has something similar, except the Gen Z is going upward. The millennial is doing the same as the city. Our Gen X is the same and stabilized, and then baby boomer is dropping down as well. And then the silent generation, they have now gone to 0 in that age bracket. Additional demographics that I wanted to share was I took all the information both for employees through the city and Juice and broke it down in this way. Based on sex, we have 73% of our workforce is male and 27% of the workforce is female. And then on the right side of that slide is broken down by race. And we have 2 American Indians. We have 3 that are categorized as Asian or Native Hawaiian, 37 black employees, 53 Hispanic, and 296 white. And the percentages are the percentages of that. So 76% of our workforce is white, 9% of our workforce is black. And I did look at our census data for 2020, but that's over 10 years old. It'd be interesting to see with what our census data looks like and how we compare to the community. Because typically in any industry, whether it's municipal government or I know when I worked for a financial institution, we wanted to make sure that we represented the customer base that came into our company. And so we made sure that seemed to be in equal numbers, as far as presentation.
I think that's even more important for a governmental agency like the city or the county.
Yeah. And the thing is it's who comes in and applies. If they won't apply, then we can't consider them. So we've got to make sure that they are invited and encouraged to come in and apply for jobs.
Do you have a split which separates Juice and the city?
I don't, but I can do one.
The reason I ask is, the male-female ratio, a great number of jobs over on the Juice side are predominantly male because of the skill sets involved. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that gives an artificial picture to the data.
I can do a breakdown between Juice and the city and see what that looks like.
That would be interesting.
Okay.
Ms. Wells.
Yes.
Could you please tell me how many minorities are in leadership roles or in supervisor roles? Do you know?
Not right off the top of my head, Mr. Freeman,
Okay.
but I can look into that and let you know.
I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
What was that question?
And I can break that down to the supervisory level,
Yeah,
so
supervisor
that we can
or
see from
leadership
the
role,
supervisor on up. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that. Okay, another thing that I wanted to point out had to do with our retirement eligible. I mentioned earlier that our retirement numbers have gone up. I find this interesting because over the last couple of years we've looked at, who's eligible to retire immediately and then who might be 5 years out. So, but I wanted to show this in a different slant this year. Our qualifications to retire, you're either age 60 and 5 years of service, or you're any age at 20 years of service. So right now, as of 7/1, the city has 52 employees, or 18% of our workforce, that is eligible to retire. 18 of those qualify under the age qualification, and 34 of them qualify under the service qualification. So that tells you, that we've got a lot of people who've been here a while. And our Juice employees, we have 21 employees. That is 17% of their workforce. 8 are for age qualification and 13 are for service qualification. So, and this number was larger last year. We were at 65 employees on the city side and 24 on the Juice side. So as people choose to retire, or they move on to other jobs or something like that, we're going to see. And what this slide tells us is that we've got to be very concerned, because if we have this large, and I consider this a large number, that those people could come in today and retire, and we'd be hurting even more than we are today.
But these numbers are exclusive of civil service again.
This is everybody.
This includes civil service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But don't they typically retire earlier than most demographic usually, right?
Yes.
In their early 50s, for
Yes,
example.
yes, they do.
Okay.
just
that
because
may
of the
be
lack.
biasing this a little bit also, right?
Yes.
Sherry, these retirement qualifications, are they set by local governance or are they state?
I believe they're local. Okay, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about our medical insurance and our health insurance in general. We use Blue Cross Blue Shield. They became our health insurance carrier for the second time on January of 2020. We offer 3 plan offerings through BCBS. We offered last year I think a very good high deductible health plan, and we started out slow. We picked up, last year we had 118 that signed up for it, and now we're sitting at 129. So this is an effort to help people take more control over their benefits, because you have a HSA that's tied to this, and the city puts in monies to that HSA account to help jumpstart them every year. Right now we have $750 for employee only, and then we have $1,500 for employee and family. And we've done that for the last several years. We've put that money in there. A lot of people will go ahead and put more money in there so that they have that money available if they need to go to the doctor or have any expenses. Our deductible for the healthcare, the high deductible plan, is $3,000. So if you don't use it for a couple of years and you've got you employee only, you can have that $750 banked, and that will help offset some of that cost. And so after you meet that $3,000 deductible, it is paid at 100%. So we are seeing this gain popularity. It's very popular with the fire department. And so it's a good plan that we have. And when we started out, it wasn't so good, but it's gotten better. The base plan offers a $1,500 deductible, and then BIOP offers a $500 deductible. And as you can see on the second bullet, the numbers with BIOP, we're down to 13 employees that have the BIOP plan. I don't know at some point if we decide that we want to go away from having 3 offerings, but we do have the people that sign up for the BIOP, they have to pay more because it is a more expensive plan, but they're making that decision to do that.
What is the employee contribution for the HDHP?
Well, if it's employee only, it's free to them.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about for family? Is that covered as well, or do they have to contribute?
They have to contribute, and I don't recall what that number is. But yeah, they have to pay some. It's still cheaper than the other 2 plans, though.
And what is the qualification? What level? You said family. Is that a husband and 3 kids, a husband and 2 kids? Or
We
what
have
is
an employee that
category?
has a wife and 8 children.
Okay, well, I've been there. I know what you're talking about.
There's no limit
Okay.
on the children. It's
Yeah,
a good
it
thing.
is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, when I got in the last update, our loss ratio to date was sitting at 73.80%, and that, according to our broker, is pretty good for this time of the year. When we were with Aetna several years ago, we got over 100%. I think we finally landed somewhere in the 140%. So when they offered a renewal, it was quite shocking. So that's why we went to something a little bit more friendly. We will receive a renewal in September of 2020, September of 2022, and we are anticipating an increase. And the reason being is there are a lot of large claims. A lot of people put off procedures last year due to COVID, and so there's been some activity in the first part of the year. And then we're also seeing a large population using specialty drugs. And these are going to be your for diabetes, heart conditions, and things of that nature. So not quite sure what that rate increase is going to be at this point. Hope to get that information pretty soon.
Could you tell us what a loss ratio is?
That's telling us basically how it's being used at this point in time. So 73% of the employees may be using it some form or fashion with regards to how they're using their benefits, whether it's through the pharmacy, whether it's through WellCare, whether it's through other types of medical experience, surgeries or things like that they have to do. So it's basing it against 100%, 100% being the top, and then they will drive a rate for us based on our usage. And
The
so
rate's based on 100% usage.
100% usage of the benefit.
Yeah.
So,
So
okay.
we're doing better,
Yeah.
much better.
Yes.
Could a low rate like that indicate some kind of difficulty with using the benefit?
It could, but coming off of a COVID year, it's basically because people just did not take advantage. They just stayed away from the doctor. So, if we had a normal year and we saw that, then we'd probably, we would be happy for that, but we'd want to probably know why, And our broker does a really good job of giving us, he just gives us a barrage of information and stuff that helps us to understand the traffic patterns. Okay. Under healthcare or health insurance, we have a dental plan. Blue Cross is our provider that we bundled with them in January of 2020 to help get some cost breaks. We have one plan offering for all employees, and currently right now our loss ratio is at 67%. And we're expecting a renewal in September for the 2022 plan year. I don't recall if there was any kind of increase. If there was, it's going to be a minimal. TMRS, this is our retirement program. Typically what we do is, as a city, we have to make contributions. And currently right now, 2021, our contribution is 11.6%, and that will go up to 11.80 for 2022. What I wanted to show by this slide was that we kept the wheels on the bus during the COVID year, and made sure that we did all the necessary things that we needed to do to be available to the employees, as well as make sure they were paid on time and benefits were up and running and things of that nature. But one of the things I wanted to focus on here was it left very little time to do anything else except COVID, other than just the day-to-day things that we needed to do. Very little time for projects or things like that. But I found this to be interesting information, and that is that we were up and running the whole time. Nowhere during this COVID time did we have to close down, did we have to do furloughs or layoffs or anything like that. We were moving for the citizens of Greenville. However, we had 351 employees that were affected by COVID in some form or fashion. That may be their spouse had it, there was an exposure at work, and everybody got quarantined. I had one department that had to completely be quarantined because of somebody that came to work with COVID. That's 85% of our workforce, and this is during the time from mid-March when it kind of hit the ground running to present. I've seen it back off dramatically over the last 90 days, and I think I've had 2 conversations with people about being either positive or exposed or whatever during the last 90 days. So it backed off. Great, it was like a light switch. You just turned it off. However, though, through this period of time, we had 90 of our employees test positive, 22% of our workforce. Several of them were hospitalized, and unfortunately, we lost one employee who died from COVID. So I spent a lot of time counseling and providing direction to employees on what to do in their personal situations. This was so foreign and so upsetting and stressful to people that you had to guide them through what was the CDC guidelines, how they needed to help themselves and their family, not to worry about their jobs and things of that nature. So we wanted to let them know that we had their backs during this really strange and unusual time. We kept up to date with CDC guidelines and state guidelines. I can't tell you how many conference calls that I was on to keep understanding what was being delivered down to us so that we could make sure that our leadership team and our staff knew what the expectations were from the guidelines through the CDC or the state. And then we had to draft policies to be in compliance with direction from all levels of government. So we had to make sure we had, various different policies that had to be written quickly and enacted to ensure that we were doing what the government needed us to do. So it was a very strange year. It's kind of good to be a little bit behind that and focus on the things that I didn't get to focus on. So going forward, my plan is to pick up some things that I didn't get to finish last year. And I wanted to just bring a couple of those things to light, and that is completion of remaining manuals. A lot of our manuals, safety manuals, personnel manual, just a whole barrage of the different manuals that we have to keep updated and in front of our employees are all outdated. So we've been working on those. And that is not a quick turnaround thing, because at the same time, what we'd like to do is update any policies that we might need to update, because some of these policies were written decades ago. And so we want to make sure that we're currently doing what we need to do for our employees that is in the 21st century. Still looking into a payroll HRIS system that's more efficient, easier to use, provides easy open enrollment, self-service, move away from all the paper that we push, because we push a lot of paper. So still looking into that, getting close to making, possible decisions on that. And then the last thing that I added here was, I think that even though I've touched on some of these things already in my 2.5-year tenure, I think it's time to touch them again. And that is that we need to develop new processes because the employee landscape is changing. And whether it's generational, whether it's recovering from a COVID year that has set new boundaries out there for us, or whatever, I want us to look into our hiring practices. I want to look into our retention practices. And I've even already developed a rewards and recognition program, but I think it needs to be updated already again. So these are things that I've got on my agenda to try and do to help it be better for our employees here at the city. So with that, any questions? Any other questions?
One of the things I hear in the marketplace is hiring bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
Have you considered that, and have you spoke with the city attorney to determine if that is, or the city manager to determine if that's something we could be doing, for example?
Summer and I spoke about that either late last week or earlier this week. Well, that was only yesterday, so it had to be late last week. And we started talking about that. So I've been doing some research on that to look and see. I'm looking at sign-on, I'm looking at retention, I'm looking at referral, and I'm looking at spot bonuses, and those are the different types of bonuses out there that employers can offer. And I think it's definitely something that we ought to at least talk about, see how it might work with our staff. I'm trying to get really creative to how to keep people hooked. I'm looking at other types of maybe different type of supplemental insurances that they would pay for. I'll give you an example: pet insurance. Believe it or not, during the COVID year, a lot of people got animals, and for companionship and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people out there that do treat their animals like their family members, in which I'm the same way, so I totally get it. And so I've had our broker look into what does a pet insurance policy look like that would be a supplemental insurance, wouldn't be any cost to the city, but it could be an offering to our employees that if they wanted to do something like that. So these types of things, and get a little bit more creative with what can we put out there that might be that hook to keep our employees here.
And the second question I have is, where do you think we've talked about minimum $15 an hour. I know in some places the minimum just to hire a clerk is $20 an hour in some areas that have really high cost of living, but where do you think that is in Greenville now? Where's our very bottom starting salary? And how far are we from that with many of our employees, I guess?
Well, one of the things that I've spent some time on this year is looking at where our salaries are. And right now, based on the fact that we're kind of let me see, how do I word this? In some situations, we are very competitive. In other situations, we're not. And those are the areas that, especially our lower jobs like our utilities and our street and things like that, we need to do something better for them because we're losing people down the street. I've seen some jobs advertised like for a street worker, a street maintenance worker, $14 an hour in Rockwall. Well, we pay 12 something. And so, even though that may not seem like a lot, but to somebody that has been working for $12 an hour for a long period of time, that seems like a huge increase. So it is something that Talia and Summer and I have been talking a great deal about, that we want to get our ranges where they need to be so that we're not listening to people leave because they're going down the street for a couple of dollars more. We want them to stay here. We want them to see that we want them to be here. But we've got to make sure that we're ready to compete.
Is there a way that you might can come up with incentives of keeping people here?
Well, that's some of the retention bonuses and spot bonuses and things like that I've done some research on, and I'm looking to put some information in front of Summer, hopefully in the next week or so.
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna lose a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question. What are the proportions of hourly and salary?
We are majority salary. I would say probably 10% is part-time. So it's very.
So everyone that's full-time is salaried?
Well, I would say everyone that's full-time is salaried, but they're put in the payroll system is hourly. So it's semantics. But they are salary. There are some non-exempt hourly positions, but basically we categorize them as full-time. And so the majority of our staff is full-time. And so the part-timers, we have trouble with our part-timers. We do churn. They leave for a variety of reasons. But then again, we have a few that stay. Some of those older generational people are part-timers. And so it's a hodgepodge of combinations.
Sherry, when's the last time we looked at our comparison cities as far as where we ranked with them?
I looked at that last year, and we were still tracking about the same. What I have done this year is when we were doing our salary, our pay plan stuff, is kind of broaden that and look at salaries that are not necessarily comparison, but they may be competitive or right down the street or something of that nature. And I'm getting salary requests or information from all over the place, all over the state. So even though we may look at our comparisons and where we sit, depending on the job, we may be close to the top, we may be in the middle, but most of the time we were at the bottom, and that's why we've been trying to work on this over the last couple of years. But we're also getting traction with looking at, like I've talked to the city of Marshall today on a couple of jobs. So I'm hearing from places that are further out, and they're saying, we look at you as somebody that might be comparable to us. And so from that perspective, what you do is you give them the information, and then you can get information back from them, and it helps. It's the nicest way to do a salary survey without having to pay buku bucks.
Well, thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
You're quite welcome.
And I
Thank you.
assume Mr. Freeman had a question, Mr. Atkins had a question, and there may have been other questions that were noted, but will you get back to us with an email
Yes.
regarding those?
Will
If you
do.
would, please.
All
Thank
right,
you very
will do.
much.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Yes. Okay. I'll try to do that. Okay, the next presentation is the Firefighters and Relief Fund. Talia.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. We are going to go over just a few short slides of the firemen